Right. So this was there were two rapid games I played for the club the other week, which were quite exciting. I've got quite a good rapid rating. I wanted to maintain it, so I wanted to try for a win with the black pieces. This was the first game. It was against John White, who was about ECF 170. So I've got kind of an inflated rapid rating at the moment, 215. Probably it's going to be hard to maintain it. So let's see what happens. So rapid is the 30-minute. Sorry, rapid is the 30-minute time control. So playing black, D4. I wanted to play the Albin counter gambit, so I played D5. So with the idea that C4, I'd play E5, but he played the solid knight F3. So I went into a reserve attacking system for knight F3, going for a kind of Dutch, potentially a Dutch stone wall, but pretending it's not. I played E6. This still reserves the possibility of F5. I haven't blocked my F pawn because I like the idea of putting a knight on E4. If this knight can come to E4 later like this is often a good, interesting attacking formation. And actually my opponent kind of let me play this way. He played actually E3, and I thought, yeah, okay, I'll play F5 here. I'm weakening okay, the E5 square. Bishop D3, knight F6, C4, so he's putting immediate pressure on D5. I want to try and reinforce D5 here, so I play C6. He's also got this pressure on F5. I've got to be careful about CDs where this bishop is not protecting F5. So if I played a move later like this, I've got to watch out for CD. I might have to recapture with the C pawn. So that's something about this. White castled here, and now bishop D6. And I was hoping that he wouldn't play knight E5, because I think if knight E5, that's really annoying for me. He could even later play F4 and it would be a very close position. I don't really want to give up my dark square bishop here, I think, if he played knight E5. If giving up the bishop, and this is potentially unpleasant for this dark square bishop, you know, maybe later it can go on this diagonal. It would be potentially unpleasant to have to do that. So I was really happy to see knight C3 being played. And here, I guess he considered that I couldn't intensify the E5 control because of this idea of CD, and if ED, then there's bishop that takes F5. But I played knight Bd7 anyway. I wasn't too concerned here about CD. I thought, is this really that convincing that CD is going to punish me? Of course, I don't want to give up a pawn. On CD, ED, bishop F5, I mean, that's good for white, surely. So, but I thought this was palatable to just take with the C pawn and allow this knight B5, because the bishop's got this retreat square on B8. And actually, he tested this. He played knight B5. I don't want to move my bishop to E7. I want to keep contesting you know, this E5 square, this critical E5 square, and it's nice to point at H2 here. It's a, you know, basic attacking thing to point at H2. So I put the bishop on B8. There's no immediate way of exploiting these pieces kind of on the back row at the moment, I thought. And he played what seemed to be an artificial looking move, Queen A4. Okay, so Queen A4, and I don't know if there's any issue here. I didn't think there was much of an issue. So black to play. I just castled here. I didn't really see any problem. I know the A pawn's pinned to the rook, so A6. You know, he doesn't have to move it unless the rook got protected. I don't know, someone's trying to be annoying here, sorry, about number of, I don't actually care about the number of people I'm streaming to. This goes on to YouTube later, so please could you just go away. Okay, so Queen A4, I castled here. So now white played bishop d2, and okay, so a6 isn't without any threat because the a pawn is pinned. However, if it's continued with knight b6, then the queen's evicted. What is the queen actually doing here anyway? And I want to eventually get on with knight e4 and something quite crude on h2. So I play a6. It's got the actual threat of knight b6 though to take here. I didn't consider white's got a problem with I didn't think I had a problem with bishop a5 or anything. So he played actually the retreat, knight c3. So I get finally this intention from the outset of this game to put a knight on e4. This is just a very nice attacking formation, I think, if you can get it, this knight on e4, because white can't really usually take on e4 without, you know, giving you some f-file pressure. It would also dislodge the knight on f3. So h2 would be weaker if that knight moved. So knight e4. Sorry, this was against John White, a 170 sort of player on Rapid last week, a club match. So it was 2 games of Rapid. So I find actually quite entertaining to have 2 back-to-back games of Rapid. It's in a certain club tournament. So knight e4. So he wants to reinforce his bishop here. So he played rook ad1. But now I just swing the rook in quite aggressively, rook f6. This is almost, it looks too good to be true to be able to play like this. But as long as I'm controlling the e5 square, it's difficult to see how white's just not in a defensive position here. So queen b3 was played. Okay, he's inhibiting the bishop, but also more importantly, there might be some sort of sacrifice heading my way with knight d5. But I didn't really see that as a big problem here. So rook h6 anyway, so I'm starting to build up the pressure on h2. He blunts the bishop on b8 now with g3. And I considered that, okay, this might still be a problem. I know it's looking pretty crude play from black, but knight df6, I'm going to come into g4, and then maybe even threaten knight takes h2 with some dangerous tactics at some point. But it will put pressure on f2, getting a knight to g4. And I don't know, he cracks a little bit here. He takes on e4, f takes e4. Knight e5 was played, which is not good. It's not good because I can just simply take on e5 now, takes, and knight g4 now double attacks e5 and h2. So I've still got an ideal position. It's just my pieces here are, okay, they're not developed. Can white exploit this? He plays. It's not good. For white, this position. I'm not really sure if the bishop wasn't here though. If it was on c1, there'll be knight takes e4. I'm just fortunate that the bishop's on d2 as well here. Otherwise, knight takes e4. But he plays f3 here, so I just take on h2 with the knight attacking the rook. Great position. F takes e4. Okay, is there some problem with the diagonal? I wasn't sure about that. I just took on f1. Rook takes f1. Queen g5 now, just ignoring d5. I'm just going on to the attack. Rook f2. Okay, here is, I thought, slightly tricky. I've got to be a little bit concerned about this diagonal opening up. So, do I continue with taking on g3? And, you know, he's also got e1 covered. So if I played queen takes g3, you know, rook g2, you know, he's coming in with taking now. I wasn't really that convinced by this position. So here, okay, black to play. Oh, sorry, if you want to play chess, can you hide your score sheet, please, on play chess? Can you just go into a different tab? What would you, because I want to play some guess the moves. It's easy with people on Twitch. So what would you play here if you had the black pieces? If I gave you I don't know if you'd find the move I played. So a clue is I'm not interested in Queen G3 that much unless you can prove it. So if I gave you 20 seconds here, what would you play with black? 20 seconds starting from now. Actually, there are probably various moves that win here, and I haven't engine checked it. So probably give yourself some points if you did look at any of these moves. Like Queen E5 probably does look good. Queen H5. I'm not entirely sure my move is the most accurate, but I played Rook H3. I thought this was more useful than taking with the Queen anyway. If I can take here, the attack's going to carry on. But there's a problem with D5. But he's more concerned about G3. So he plays Knight E2. Actually, I have got a variation. If he had played Rook G2, I've got a variation from before actually. Queen H5, Knight E2, check. This is quite dangerous. King F2. This is similar to the game, so let's not get into that now. So Rook H3. Knight E2. He did protect E2 with the knight. Queen H5. Rook G2 gives his king F2. But I play Bishop D7 here because I'm also thinking not only Rook F8 but also this Bishop B5 could be dangerous. Bishop B4 now, he stops Rook F8. But here, check is pretty dangerous. King F2. And now black to play a very simple move. Well, it looks quite crushing. Okay, I haven't got Rook F8. I'm pretty sure it's one of the better moves. There's probably multiple moves actually. Well, I just played D takes E4. I'm just threatening now Queen F3 because that knight is coming. You know, I can just there's nothing wrong with this. My bishop's holding E6. There's no problem there. Knight D4, and now I'm just crashing through with Queen F7 check. Because it's a disaster. If King E2, you know, this happened actually. Queen F1, and he resigns here. So I don't know. It seemed I wasn't even going to show this game. It seemed a bit noddy actually. This game to me, it seemed a bit too simple. If we just have a look at what happened, I think one of the old masters used to say, if you have a knight on E4, the attack can play itself, or a knight on E5. There was one master that used to say that, and I've seen this kind of very stereotypical plan. You can often play this even in 5-minute chess, a sort of, you know, Dutch stone wall attack. It's a very, very well trodden routine that this game featured, really, that you entrench a knight on E4, and when you castle you just do your rook like this, and it almost plays itself, this kind of attack. And you know, if ever you're getting this F file. I wasn't sure if I played it well, but it was just a rapid time limit, so it just seemed easy to play. But often the strategy for white in combating this kind of system is to, you know, get rid of this bishop. You know, often with an exchange like this never happened. Then white can think about knight E5. So this stuff, you know, often doesn't happen. It's just a dream in Dutch stonewall type positions, because you are weakening a lot of, you know, the dark squares. So, and you also sometimes left with a very bad bishop, you know, on C8. And often, you know, players in the Dutch defence are having to get this bishop out to H5, and it's a long, you know, manoeuvring. You have to know all the downsides of playing like this Dutch, you know, stone wall system. But here, I mean, he just didn't offer too much resistance. This bishop was kept on the board, and it was dangerous for H2. The thing which seemed a little bit unusual was allowing knight B5, but it didn't seem to have a big follow-up. If there was a big follow-up on c7, you know, if this had already been developed, then this would have been dangerous to get into c7. But in this particular position, it was easy to, you know, repel that knight back. If he had played like this, then just, you know, knight b6, and then I just take it because the knight would have been protecting the rook. So he had to get the knight back, and it just played itself, basically, the game. I didn't really think, I thought it was a bit of a noddy game, and he didn't really think he played that well. I agreed he didn't play that well, but okay, so, but it helped in this 4-board match in the first phase. So we were 2.5, 1.5 in the first half of this match. So this was last week. So I'm going to show you the second game, and this is reconstructed from memory. Now this second game, it's a bit patchy in parts, the reconstruction, and it's a longer game. I tried to recall it immediately after, like the next day, because I think I would have forgotten it by now. This next game against John White, so I was playing White. I was playing White against John White. Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny. I was playing White against John White. Okay, so d4. So White against John White. Knight f6, and I play knight c3 because I've been having a lot of fun recently with this knight c3 move. I think it catches people by surprise. You know, knight c3, what on earth is knight c3? It's kind of Mark Hebden territory. You know, it's kind of you can trick people into playing something they don't really want to play. You know, like a perk appears or something. So he played d6 and e4, g6, and so I've got a kind of position I like, and I don't know if this is at all good, actually, objectively, but the main move here is the Austrian attack. But there was this one game many years back of in a magazine or something, Michael Hennigan, who was a former British champion one year, and IM won the British Championship one year, Michael Hennigan, and there was this game featured against this GM where he'd played bishop g5 actually and then f4, and it was a super aggressive game, and it made a very vivid impression on me to play this way. So I don't think bishop g5 is objectively potentially as good as f4, but I think it's an interesting position to play it like this. So he plays c6, which gives the potential for the knight to come to d5. Knight f3, castles, and now I play e5 anyway. D takes, knight d5. So I take on d5, c takes. I try and gang up on d5 now with queen d2. So I just want to castle queenside and put pressure on d5. So he plays knight c6, I castle queenside. h6, I drop the bishop to h4. So, and he makes a gambit out of this d5 pawn, so he's trying to play more aggressively in this second game. So queen b6. So if I take this pawn, I might face the wrath of some counterplay, which would be difficult to handle, given it's only a 30-minute rapid game. Maybe I should take it. I don't know. Bishop e6. I don't really know. You know, he's got the c file to work with. You know, knight b4s. Do you really want to handle this sort of position? Not really, generally, in 30-minute games. So I played actually what was probably a move which caught him by surprise. Probably quite annoying. Just bishop f2 actually, kicking the queen somewhere. And to my delight, I mean, I think the queen should go back to c7. But he volunteered swapping queens here with queen b4. And that's to my delight, because what's holding up d5 after this? I take the queen, knight takes b4, and what's holding up d5 is only the knight, so I play a3. Knight goes back. And here I thought, well, with the queens off, it's not a bad position, surely, just to take on d5. Where's the actual counterplay now with the queen's off? This bishop's also kind of locked in. If there's anything about this structure, it does lock in that bishop on g7. So bishop e6, rook c5, and rook c5 I thought was interesting because I might continue with bishop e5. The rook might come back to c3. This one comes and I'll try and join the d file at some point. Rook fd8, bishop b5, and he plays down bishop d7, rook d1, a6, and I spot, hang on, I'm going into cheapo territory here. Surely, if bishop a4, there's a bit of a, I thought there might be a cheapo. I'm not entirely sure about this. Does black have a cheapo here if I give you 20 seconds? I didn't play bishop a4, but is there a cheapo? That's the question. What can black play here? Unless I'm dreaming, I haven't really engine checked this game in detail. I thought knight takes e5. Yeah, knight takes e5. Just on that bishop. Unless there's something for white here against John White. Just take on, it doesn't work. Just take on d7. I think you're right. I don't think this works. I think maybe bishop takes d7. If knight takes, I think just rook d5. It doesn't even work. So, okay, that was probably an initial reason for not playing bishop a4. So the bishop just dropped back to e2, e6, and then I've got the d6 square now. I know he's made, to attack the rook, but the rook's shuffling back. Bishop e8. Bishop b6. I want to keep. I want to get control of this d file. Rook takes. Bishop takes. And I didn't want to exchange both rooks off. I wanted to keep my rook on. Bishop f8. And here, I think something like h4. This might be getting into reconstruction territory. I'm not entirely sure this is the right move sequence. But I was threatening h5. He parried that with h5, but given me the g5 square. So I can just get my knight in here now. And I thought, hang on, knight e4 to f6. So he plays knight e7, knight e4. Knight e5 is a bit annoying. So I'm forced to go in for this knight f6 check to get rid of this knight. Knight takes, e takes. These double pawns, yes, but how does he get to f6? Bishop c6, g3. Now here, rook c8, rook d3, I have bishop d5. I think you might have to ignore this next move. I think this is part of reconstruction here. One moment. c4, bishop d5, rook d2. Okay. He played bishop c5. I took, he takes. Now white to play, I was quite pleased with this. No, I was delighted. I saw all the way here with a certain move, which I was really pleased with. What would you play here if I gave you 20 seconds starting from now? So white to play. I'm not entirely sure mine's the absolute best move, but what would you play with white here? Can you see forcefully how the rook and pawn ending, if there's a rook and pawn ending, would be winning by force on your chosen move? Okay, actually that's probably not the right question for the exact position here. So let's go on with, I played b4. The rook goes to c7, but my intention is not, okay, my intention is not c5 here. what can white play instead, which kind of forces a win in any case if black wants to take on c4? Okay. So, one or two of you, yeah, I've mentioned King B2. So offering the C4 pawn. So yes, he takes, bishop takes, rook takes. And I was pleased here to find a sequence winning here. So how does white actually make progress? Oh, yeah. There's two ways of making progress, actually. So maybe it's a bad question. I play... check, King H7, and actually probably strong is Rook D7 here. I played actually Rook F8 first, so Rook C7, but now white play in this position. What would you play here as white if I gave you 20 seconds here? So white play here. Yeah. Okay, so Rook E8, because now this Rook E7 is delightful to have. The king's just too far away. If this rook ever took, this pawn's like queening. So Rook D7, Rook E7, and I'm going to be forking both pawns once this rook moves. Check, King C3. So this pawn's pretty dangerous now, actually. Rook G2 takes on F7, King H6. I took on B7. Rook takes G3. I'm bringing my king up to E5 now. Rook G4. King E5 protecting F4. Rook takes H4. And then just Rook B8. I'm threatening mate. And after King H7, I just play F7. And this pawn is now queening. End of game. And the team won. So that was a nice evening. The team, so in that second half, we won 4-0. So that was a fun team match. So those were two fun 30-minute games. I didn't seem to get time to put them on YouTube after several days after. I wasn't sure how great they were, to be honest. Maybe they're interesting. I don't know. So I thought actually the main intention originally of this evening was to check out some Richard Reti games, because Richard Reti's come in 2 games of the World Championship. I keep saying Richard Reti. So he was one of the leading hypermodernists in around about the time of Nimzovich, and I thought, well, let's have a look at 1 or 2 Richard Reti games. Okay, now this one's quite a corker. I think it's probably I don't want to spoil things. Let's have a look at this corker first. So Richard Reti against Tartakower. So this was played in Vienna 1910. So E4 by Richard Reti. So Reti gives his name to Knight F3, you know, the Reti opening. That's Richard Reti. He created Knight F3. The idea that you could kind of put pressure on the centre from, you know, fianchettos, like, you know, fianchetto, put pressure, or this one, you put pressure on these central squares without actually occupying the centre with pawns. But in this game, this was before, you know, he went crazy on Knight F3, so he played E4. We saw the Caracan, D4, D5, Knight C3, D takes E4, Knight takes E4, Knight F6, and he prepared something very, very naughty here, Queen D3. So Queen D3, and this would be great for a trap view, actually. So Queen D3, what does it do? Well, actually, it's like preparing to get things out of the way to castle queenside. Black played E5. And now, this black might have thought this is a very interesting, liberating move. to make use of this check here. So, you know, D takes, black doesn't want to like take here, because of course we're protecting the knight on e4. No, black's idea was to play the check. So it seems logical so far. Bishop d2, queen takes e5. And white castle's queenside now. Oops, did he just leave a piece unpraised? This knight, is it just left? Oh dear, has he just lost very, very quickly in 8 moves? So we see knight takes e4, but, and there is quite a large but in this position. What does white play here if I gave you 20 seconds starting from now? Okay, if you haven't seen this before, this is a corker. Queen d8 check. Queen d8, unbelievable. King takes, and the idea is now this double check, and so black can't put anything in front because it's 2 checks to handle from over here and from over here. And if king e8, then we would have rook d8. They coordinate beautifully as well. So that would be mating there. And the other naughty thing about this, well, is played king c7, and there's this very naughty bishop d8. King can't even come out. So that's mate as well. So that was a naughty thing he'd prepared for poor Tartagoa. I thought it's always good to start on these little ones. First, these little games. Okay, before getting onto anything too heavy. So now for this next game, I had to spend at least 10 minutes on pronunciation issues. I don't like covering this player because of all the pronunciation issues. Bogdalochbo. I had this written down. If you want to learn how to pronounce this, there is actually a video on YouTube. Bogalubov. I'm going to give you a video link on Twitch. There's actually a dedicated video to the pronunciation of this, and I've written some notes here. Yeah, so my note does say Bogalubov. Anyway, that's as near as I think I can get it without revising the video right now. It sounds okay. It's like Bogalubov. So basically, you don't pronounce the J, LJ, you just ignore the J, Bogalubov. So actually, it doesn't sound that painful. In fact, I started thinking the first name is even worse than the second name, because it was pronounced weirdly as though there was an extra J. The first is actually Yefim. I thought, where did Yefim come from? Instead of Efim, it's like Yefim. So anyway, I don't want to get into that too much, but it keeps coming up. So I thought I've got to try it at least. So anyway, notes by Alexander Alakin. Knight f3 by Richard Reti. So this is what we're seeing in this is topical now. This is World Championship match. Richard Reti playing the Reti opening. Yeah? Topical. Notes by Alakin. And remember, Alakin was treated as a hypermodernist as well, because Alakin has his Alakin's opening, which he hardly ever played. Knight f6. That's hypermodern as well, because we're not occupying the centre with a pawn. We're kind of encouraging the centre from the opponent. So anyway, knight f3, d5, c4, attacking the centre with a flank pawn, e6, g3, knight f6. I've forgotten what was exciting about this game now, actually. No, I think there's an exciting bit later. Bishop g2, bishop d6, both sides castle. b3. Oh, it's a double fianchetto. Rook e8, bishop b2. So can white get a better position than Magnus Carlsen with this double fianchetto? He's also included c4 as well, but he hasn't played d4 yet. He's about to. d4. And Alakin's notes are interesting. To our way of thinking, Alakin writes, this is the clear positional refutation of e6, by which was first played by Capablanca as black against Marshall, and is based upon the simple circumstance that black cannot find a method for the effective development of the queen's bishop. So Alakin is creating that issue with the queen's bishop, right? So c6, knight bd2, knight e4, and you know we're going to have this horrible f5 business which I've showed you earlier. Now that's stopped. White takes on e4, d takes, and perches a knight on e5, which is everything you want to do. It's rock solid anyway, the king side here, and we're blunting that bishop on d6, f5, f3, trying to smash this centre up now. The proper strategy, Alakin writes, after black has weakened his position centre, white forthwith must aim to change the closed game into an open one in order to make as much as possible out of that weakness. E takes f, bishop takes f3. Not e takes f3, Alakin writes, because the e pawn must be utilised as a battering ram, Alakin indicates. So bishop takes f3. We're going to have this as a battering ram, this e pawn. Queen c7. Knight takes d7, bishop takes. e4, it is a battering ram, and it's also threatening e5. So e5 to stop white from playing e5. c5, bishop f8. Queen c2, simultaneously attacking both of black's centre pawns here. E takes d4. Black's sphere of action is circumscribed. For example, Alakin writes f takes e4. What did he write about this? Clearly would not do on account of the twofold threat against h7 and e5. After bishop takes e4, yes, bishop takes e4. We've got these two threats. Okay, so we see, that's why probably we see e takes d4. If I can get it, e takes d4. So e takes f5, rook ad8, bishop h5 hitting the rook. So the rook goes to e5, bishop takes d4, rook takes f5, rook takes, bishop takes, queen takes, and there's a bit of a snag with f7, rook takes d4. Now rook f1, and actually this is the juicy bit really. So we're threatening mate by taking the bishop. So the rook comes to protect that, rook d8. There's a slight back row weakness generated here after bishop. Okay, actually, should I mention this from here? What would you play if you had white in this position? It's a really crushing sequence from this position, and I think it is actually quite famous. So 20 seconds starting from now. So Danny Boy on Play Chess, this is probably a famous game. It is one of his notable games. So if I gave you 20 seconds, what would you play as white here? Amazing! It's not bishop e8. I've got you there. I'm pretty sure it's not bishop e8. But yeah, okay. Okay, first it's bishop f7 check, which creates more of a back row weakness. And now, can you see white's move in this position? Okay, I hope you've seen it. It's bishop e8 now. So we're threatening queen takes f8. So if rook takes, black resigned here. If rook takes e8, queen takes is mating. Yeah. If bishop takes c5 check, we just take with the queen, and we're still mating over here. What else? If queen e7, we just take on f8. So it's pretty crushing. I'm not sure there's any other major defenses to check out here after bishop e8. Okay, so that was quite an amusing little finish there. And there's two very, very interesting games. The game against Capablanca is actually, I've done a specific video on YouTube, Kingscrusher, for the game against Capablanca, if you want to check it out at some point. I'm not really sure I should repeat looking at that game, but there's a game against Max Erver, which is quite interesting, which I'll like to show. So there's actually two games against Max Erver. Let's have a look at the first one. Whoops, not the John White game. So this is in Amsterdam, 1920. So Richard Reti playing black. Sorry, I forgot to mention about h7. Amazing, Greg. Can you answer that? Amazing. What was the refutation of h7 in that final position, or do we need to go back there? Can you work it out from after h7 in that previous game? Wasn't it just queen takes f8 was threatened? Just queen takes f8. We're a bishop up anyway. So anyway, so Max over against Richard Reti. So e4 from Max. Let's flip the board. e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6. And this is quite scary to face in blitz if you're playing black. When white plays d4, this is quite scary, I find, if you don't know the theory especially. So e takes d4, white castles, quite a dangerous gambit, some sort of Scotch gambit. Rook e1, d5. So white takes on d5 here, making this pin more dangerous. And the other horrible thing is a pin on this one as well. So knight c3 using this pin. So both these are like, this one's pinned, this one's pinned. Queen a5, knight takes d4, knight takes, queen takes d4. If white had played check here, we can just retreat the knight like this. So we see queen takes d4, and now this outrageous move f5. The thing is, f3, we've got bishop c5, skewering the queen to the king. So bishop g5 is played. Scotch gambit Anderson attack, possibly. Sorry, yeah. Queen c5 now, allowing this seemingly really dangerous queen d8 check. Queen d8 check, king f7. Knight takes, f takes, and black is not threatening anything too dangerous at the moment. Rook a d1, bishop now it gets really interesting here. We see bishop d6 offering an exchange sack to lure the queen to take this, So queen takes h8, queen takes g5. So black's bishops look a bit menacing, pointing this direction at the king. f4 now. So if e takes, we've got this e8 square. And if queen takes f4, we've got rook f1, so winning the queen. So queen h4, rook takes e4. And now, can you see the brilliant move that black played? In this position, if I gave you 20 seconds here, what would you play as black? Anyone? Okay, so let's show you. So the move bishop h3 is crazy. So it's offering this other rook as well. So that's taken, and now we get a forcing move bishop c5 check. And if king f1, we just mate. I think that's just mate. So king h1, and now bishop takes g2 check. It's all forced. King takes queen g4 check, and this is mating now. If king h1, queen f3 is mate. And king f1 was played, but still check is pretty lethal after king e1, queen f2. And the funny thing about this game is the next game actually against Max Erver that I like to show. And a similar sort of theme. So this queen, I don't know, Max Erver, I don't know, did he have this addiction to winning rooks or something? Let's have a look at this other game. So this was in the same year apparently. It sort of been Amsterdam, Rotterdam. So Richard Reti playing white against Max Erver again. Sorry, there's a question. What was about rook d4 after bishop c5? What about rook d4 after bishop c5? Let's just go back to rook c5. So what move number was that? No, rook takes c4. I'm not sure I can find the move number. What, Danny boy? Sorry, what move number? Okay, I can't find it. Sorry, maybe after. So, okay, let's have a look at this other game, which is very, very interesting. D4 from Richard Reti, F5, and we get this Staunton gambit, E4. That's taken knight C3, knight F6, bishop G5, G6. Now F3, E takes, knight takes, bishop G7. Bishop D3, C5, D5, Queen B6. This looks dangerous. If white castles, then there's C4 check, winning the bishop. Agreed? You know, if castles, we've got C4 check. So white doesn't want to do that. White plays Queen D2 and try and, you know, castle queenside. But Queen takes B2 stops that as well. Rook B1. Now, what seems to be an enormously clever move is played here from black. Black played knight takes d5, and this looks quite nifty actually, because if rook takes b2, we've got bishop takes c3, so we're winning that queen. So that's a bit of a problem. But white here follows that similar pattern. I don't know if it was later in the year. He just offers both rooks again. He actually plays knight takes d5, offering both rooks. Take my rooks. So queen takes b1 check, king f2, and the other rook is taken. So you might wonder, how is this justified? Well, the first thing is to stop black castling, because then if the king gets into safety, black's just two rooks up. So we see bishop takes e7, stopping the king castling. d6, and now bishop takes d6, knight c6, and can you see a strong move for white here? So what would you play with white in this position? If you had the white pieces, you've just lost both rooks. What would you play with white now if I gave you 20 seconds in this position? I'm hoping it's one of the strongest moves. Actually, looking at it, there probably other moves win, actually. I'm not entirely sure. There's probably multiple moves that win here. So I'm going to have to show you the game continuation. Bishop b5 seems really quite strong, just pinning this knight, because now this check is more lethal than before. You know, if the knight's pinned. So we see bishop d7, and that's taken. Bishop takes e6, b takes. Now check, king d8, and now simply bishop c7 check, king c8, queen a6 mate. So I thought that was amusing. In the same opponent, again giving up both rooks. And yeah, I thought that was quite interesting. So the game against Capablanca, if you want to search on YouTube for Reti Capablanca, I think I've covered that quite well in a video. So I hope you enjoyed this week. Okay, see you next week then. So Tuesday around about the same time. Comments or questions on YouTube when it gets uploaded there. Thanks very much.